Hey guys and gals, it's Logan Freeman, and it's my main man.
Alex Olson.
Welcome to another edition, the first edition of the Kansas City Multifamily Minute for 2021. Wow, what a year 2020 was. And, I might be somewhat polarizing for saying this, but I had a great 2020. And I had a great 2020 because I got to bring our second child into the world. We moved, we sold our house, we bought a new house, and, through all of the kind of ups and downs in the commercial real estate world, we never took our foot off the gas. We never said, woe is me. We said, okay, what can we control? And we went and controlled what we could. And I know that that's not the case for everybody, but, just because everybody else had a bad 2020 and was wishing it away doesn't necessarily mean that I have to either. So, anyways, I hope your 2020 was fantastic. I hope it was productive. And if it wasn't, okay, well, great. We have a great opportunity now for a new year. And let's not forget that calendar years, minutes, and hours, 60 minutes creating 1 hour and 60 seconds creating 1 minute, that was from way, way back, a long time ago. And you can choose whichever day it is to be a better version of yourself and to be happy. And so I want you today to choose the ability, you'll have the ability, and to choose happiness and to be excited about life. And so, anyways, that I'm going to get off my high horse here, Alex. But I did want to just share that message. I think there's so many negative messages out there. I was just watching the 2020 ball drop, in Madison Square, I think. I don't know where it's at. It's in New York City somewhere. I've been there. You're on mute, my man.
Times Square.
Times Square, yeah. Times Square. And I remember pushing my little daughter around there. She was 6 months old. I had her up there in Times Square. But anyways, and all that anybody could talk about was just how bad 2020 was. So if you're in that camp, hey, that's fine too. But just realize that you get to make the choice of how you are. There's a big difference between emotions, which is the body's visceral reaction to what's going on, and how those things are actually turned into feelings. Between emotion and feeling is an opportunity to tell a story. And if you don't believe that, go ahead and read Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning, and your perspective will be changed. So, Alex, before we jump into the case for Kansas City in 2021, talk a little bit about how Kansas City did in 2020 and some perspective on some deal flows. I want to know what your biggest win and your biggest loss was for 2020. And let's start with the negative, since I was on that nice bandwagon. What was your biggest loss for 2020? And let's talk through that.
Yeah, I think when I look at 2020, the biggest loss is also my biggest gain. I mean, to most people, and really parts of it in the moment were my biggest loss, and that was I got fired. A lot of people, don't say I got fired, that they say I let go, or,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm no longer there. I'll say I got fired, but it was also the greatest moment for me because I no longer had to adhere to the corporate world of working for somebody else.
That's
And
right.
that's fine. Obviously, millions of people do it. But lucky for me, the reason why it's also the best thing is lucky for me is I was planning on leaving anyway. And
Yeah.
so I had developed a plan and a playbook, a lot of it with your help and people here at Clemons Real Estate on getting past the day job and into a working for myself. And
That's right.
so at the time, for maybe a half of a second, it was the worst thing. And then a half second later, it was the best thing. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of people experience that. A lot of people didn't have the luxury that I had at times, where they were let go due to the pandemic and some other, horrible issues. But I hope that people can see 2021, even though it's fake and made up in terms of science, in terms of the actual real thing,
Yep.
time being not really a true measurement, is that 2021 is a new year. Reset your life, look at your goals, get into it, realize the past is a past, and you can make changes.
Amen, man. That's awesome. And you heard it here first. You're here, a guy that they got let go from a six figures job in the middle of COVID is sitting here on the line with you right here. 4 years ago, I was let go from a six figures job, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So thanks for sharing that, my man. I couldn't be more grateful for you being on our team and us getting to work together on a daily basis. And I know we're going to crush it this year. So thank you for sharing that story. Thank you for being vulnerable. And thank you for always, always, always bringing the fire. I appreciate that. You ready to jump into some market commentary?
Let's hear it.
All right. So as you guys know, it's our job to continue to bring you updates about what's going on in Kansas City, about deal flow, about the different macroeconomic trends happening at the Fed, at the national level, at the state level, and then down to Kansas City, and then being able to make decisions based off of that. Again, you could just take this information and you have to dial it down into what it means to you. But what we're trying to do here is give you guys an idea of what we hear and the questions that we hear on a regular basis from our buyers. And so one big thing that Alex and I like to do is look at all of the economic and demographic markers over the last 12 months, because it's what everybody looks at to gauge the strength of a market. And so we're going to do that for 2020. We're going to look at kind of some of the previous transactions, the volume that happened here in Kansas City, and then also kind of a predictor into the future. So into 2021 here, we're going to kind of give you an idea of where there might be some opportunity. So if you haven't done it already, go over to our link and fill out the buyer intake form. It is a, 15 question form that grabs your information, but also what you're looking for. That's going to give, Alex and I the opportunity to take a look at that and then, think about some ideas and then have a first call with you. After that first call, you're going to start receiving the weekly deal flow in these market commentary emails with the videos and all of the different market reports that we're compiling, appraisals of past transactions. Alex and I are closing a $4.2 million transaction today. We're very proud of that transaction. There was a lot of ups and downs to that transaction, but it's a 1031 exchange client that we are extremely excited for, and they are excited as well. We had some big wins. I think that will probably be our case study this year, Alex. We really should break that down into a case study so we can, kind of work through the different ins and outs of those transactions. So keep me honest with that. Make sure that Jenica and I continue to work on that. And so we will get you guys a case study from this transaction, because it went from, here to there to here to there. And we love our clients, Alex and Sam. You guys are awesome. Sam and Jess, you guys are awesome. Alex, I know you spent a lot of time with them. So did I. So, but that's what it's all about, is building relationships with somebody that you can trust. And we are here to help you along the journey. So let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of the market commentary for last year and then looking into this year. So other than the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl in February, many folks believe that there was not much to cheer about in the Kansas City area in 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic wreaked havoc on so many levels, both nationwide and locally here in Missouri. Nationwide lockdowns took a human toll as Americans were isolated from loved ones, friends, colleagues, and classmates. And I remember the day that Alex was let go or fired from his job. He gave me a call, and I was down at the farm walking around. He's like, yeah, today was the day it actually happened. So I'm full-time in real estate, and my big old smile, from ear to ear. So it did. I mean, it took a toll as people were isolated. The most heartbreaking example, and this is going to be a little intense here, but the most heartbreaking example of a psychological toll from social distancing was when residents of a nursing home in Greeley, Colorado gathered outside, many in wheelchairs, and held up signs that read, "Rather than die from COVID, rather die from COVID than loneliness, which was just so sad. You know, prisoners in our own home, give us freedom. I mean, I remember watching, you know, loved ones just, you know, passing away or not being able to be reached. So if you went through that, our hearts do go out to you for that situation. It's not an easy one. But financially, the toll exacted by COVID-19 on Americans has been devastating. After dipping to 3.8% in February, among the lowest on record, unemployment shot up to the pandemic peak of 14.7% in April. And it's since fallen, but it's still lingered at a really high level, 6.5 to 6.7% in November. And no region was spared, including Kansas City. But nationwide, multifamily took a hit as unemployment impacted rents. Alex and I brought you updates about the National Multifamily Housing Committee's tracker almost all year, almost weekly. But despite all the doom and gloom, there is reason to be optimistic about Kansas City, not only for the Chiefs to repeat as the champions, but for the economy and the multifamily sector to rebound in a big way. As the data trickles in, the numbers are confirming to me and to Alex about what we've known all along about Kansas City, that it has a strong underlying economy. It was strong before the pandemic, and there is now data to show that Kansas City and Missouri in general were the most resilient during the pandemic and show signs of being among the areas poised to bounce back the quickest and the strongest. And now I'm not here to just always be making, you know, claims without backing it up by theoretical and empirical data. So first, a discussion of Kansas City's strong economy before the pandemic. So KC's economic strength lies in its strong job numbers. Before the pandemic hit, employment numbers in Kansas City were very strong. Total employment in the KC metro area increased by 8,500 workers in 2019, growing 0.8% for the area's ninth consecutive year of employment growth. The unemployment rate declined to 3.3% in March, just before the pandemic, the area's lowest since 1999. The Kansas City metro's area's unemployment rate was a full half point below the national rate. So strong job growth translated to strong multifamily numbers in the KC metro area. By the end of 2019, vacancies dropped to 4.5%, falling a total of 50 basis points in 2019. That translated to strong rent growth, where asking rents rose 3.8% in 2019. So how did the region in Kansas City fare in comparison to the rest of the country during the pandemic? That's what everybody wants to know about. Better than most. Unemployment in the KC metro peaked at only 11.7% in April compared to 14.7% nationwide, a full 3% below the national rate. So this resilience can be explained by the Missouri's economy, Kansas City, Missouri's economy, composed of a diverse mix of industries. We're always talking about Kansas City, its economy, not one sector, not comprising more than 15% of the total economy here in Kansas City. So this translated into lower economic vulnerability to the pandemic than any other state. So according to a June study conducted by Wallet Hub, Missouri was ranked 49th out of 51 states, and DC among the states most exposed to coronavirus. States were ranked by the levels of highly affected industries and workforce and resources for businesses to cope better with the crisis, with Missouri ranking lower in the former and high in the latter, giving its low vulnerability rating. So that's awesome news. You know, and as for the effect of the pandemic on the Kansas City multifamily sector, while the rest of the country saw rent declines in 2020 to the tune of negative 0.9%, Kansas City was one of the few cities that saw an increase at 1.1%. So as for 2021, Kansas City is expected to recover faster than most cities. In another ranking by Wallet Hub that compared cities whose unemployment rates are bouncing back the most, Kansas City was ranked 17th among 180 cities. So What about the multifamily outlook for Kansas City in 2021? The outlook is good. According to CBRE, which is a firm here that we really respect, suburban assets in the Midwest and Southwest regions will provide the best opportunities for solid market performance and achieving expected returns and revenues next year. Kansas City was singled out amongst other Midwest cities as being the best multifamily performers in the country. So 2020 was rough all around, but there are signs of optimism for the Kansas City metro area, especially in the multifamily sector. So KC multifamily sector proved its resilience during the pandemic with jobs and the economy poised to make a rebound in 2021. Many people are pegging Kansas City to be a top performer this upcoming year. Just like there's a strong case for the Chiefs that they will repeat as Super Bowl champions, there is a strong case for Kansas City multifamily investments for 2021 and beyond. Now, that's all good. There's a lot of data. I know I read off a lot of numbers to you guys there, but I think it's important. It's important to back up these claims that Kansas City is a stronger multifamily market than most, but it's also really important to see, okay, it's complete at the theoretical level with the data, but is it effective at the applied level? And that's where we jump into deal flow. Multifamily transactions volume in Missouri and in the Midwest has slowed this year, as it has slowed everywhere, with 4.5 billion in sales closing through October. That's almost a 40% decrease compared to the same period last year, similar to the decline nationwide. But while fewer deals and lower price points may be unsurprising given the ongoing economic volatility, investment, particularly in well-located, stabilized, renter by necessity, RBN, we talk about this a lot, communities still pushes on. There's a table in the market commentary that I want you guys to check out. The table below highlights the 5 Midwestern markets with the highest overall transaction volume year to date through October based on Yardi Matrix data. These metros account for just shy of 2/3 of the region's investment activity. And that is Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, the Twin Cities, and Indianapolis. Although more than 8,000 units changed hands through October in Kansas City, the highest among the Midwest markets, lower pricing places the metro third on our list. So something to take consideration there. Highest number of units transacted, lower price point, right? So that's why investors love Kansas City. And so, there was $470 million in closed deals, okay? Kansas City's multifamily sector has proved resilient amid wider volatility. We do, and I want to touch on that too, 8,000 units. Alex and I were involved in over 850 of those units in Kansas City. Two guys sitting here talking to you were involved in more than 10% of the big Kansas City metro area, metropolitan areas, multifamily. So we do know what we're doing. We do know what we're talking about just a little bit, at least 10% of what's going on in the market. So we do believe that 2021 will be a strong year for transactions in Kansas City, especially now that we have the amount of data on collections and the market as a whole. Add this into the recipe that we have a vaccine being distributed and low interest rate debt financing available. I mean, it's going to stay low for a while, I have a feeling. We're gearing up for a solid year. So we're here to help you navigate the rough waters of a commercial real estate transaction, especially during uncertain times. And we look forward to working with you guys on your next 1031 exchange and or your first acquisition in Kansas City. Well, that was a mouthful, and I apologize how long that took. I don't know. I wasn't really watching the time, but I do think that was quite long, but it is a important topic to talk about, especially at the beginning of the year, so people start to understand why people are moving into Kansas City, how it performed last year before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and how we think it's going to perform this year. Not only breaking down the claims of hey, these are data points, but backing that up with actual transactions that are happening. $470 million in closed deals, over 8,000 units, the most in the Midwest. So, Alex, I'm going to pause there, let you add anything that you would like to, and or ask me any questions about some of those data points there.
I think it's important to look at the data that was providing this. You know, and one of the big pieces to me when I look at material is, you know, the big names. Where is this data coming from? I mean, I look at all data points, but when you're talking about CBRE, which is a national commercial brokerage real estate firm, and they've pulled out Kansas City and a couple different places there. Yardi Matrix, you know, similar thing there in terms of what they offer, but it's one of those things where Kansas City and a lot of the Midwest towns are really on the map for transaction volume. And we do have people coming in, you know, saying, I want to be in Kansas City. And so we provide, you know, on our website, you know, all this information to customers for free. And you can take a look and don't take our word for it. I'm not, you know, I think you invest in Kansas City because of all this information we're giving you. So it's an important thing to look at. What did you think was the most shocking piece of information in 2020 that stood out to you based on that data that you saw?
Well, I mean, I think it's being a part of and living in one of the markets that, you know, is holding up so well. You know, talking to all of our clients who do not live here, the most remarkable thing is trying to implore on them the difference of how living is in the Midwest than it is on the coast. And, you know, they're just having a hard time realizing that people are still going to restaurants. People are still paying rent. People are not, you know, just like, you know, making a big deal about the pandemic as much as they might be in the coast, which is then not impacting our businesses, our government, our, you know, shutdowns as long. I don't know how long our shutdown was or lockdown was this year, but when we would have people come into town from California and stuff, man, they were just flabbergasted about, like, life was still moving and it was still going on. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying that's the right way to do this thing because we're still in the pandemic and COVID is still a real thing. But, like, the data is now backing up the fact that people are still working. We still have jobs, and our year-over-year rent growth is positive because of that. And we're still one of the most affordable Midwestern markets in the country. You know, so I think that the big thing that I was interested in was that. The second was Chicago really grabbing so much transaction in relation to, you know, the transaction volumes. I mean, it was double what Kansas City was. And don't get me wrong, like, Chicago's big, but that was only 6,471 units. It was double the pricing. And in Kansas City, we did 8,000 units in 470 million. And so the average price per unit in Chicago was $233,000. Like, tell me how you can even get the 1% rule on that. And I bet that's not like the high end of the spectrum either.
I was going to say, when you're reading that off, I mean, if I owned property in Chicago, I'd sell right away and put it in Kansas City. You're going to double your money right away almost.
I mean, I think that we just see that the trend being that people are moving money off of Wall Street and into Main Street. I mean, you and I were talking about this beforehand. It was like some of the transactions that traded here in Kansas City were just like, whoa, you know, like, I'm not sure how that is working. But again, you don't know exactly how, or the capital stack that somebody else is bringing into the picture. And there's a lot of different factors. And, you know, I mean, you can have a 1031 exchange just like the last day that you either pay a couple $1 million in tax or you put it into a commercial real estate deal. What do you do? Well, I mean, I've never been put in that situation, but I imagine that if I was in that situation, I would still probably buy something instead of paying, you know, Uncle Sam a couple $1 million in tax. Now, that's just, you know, an off the cuff kind of statement, but that could happen more often than not. You know, I mean, I think people do fall into those scenarios a little bit more often than we think, man. So walk us through a couple of the projects that we've got. Couple of them that came back to us. Maybe we're under contract, popped back onto the list, and where people can find this deal flow, man.
Yeah, so we've got up the Lease Summit fourplex. You've heard me talk about the Lease Summit market. You've seen me out there in person. amazing suburb, top school district. We have that fourplex. It's back available. The seller actually dropped the price by 10,000, and he's offering the inspection free and available to you. It's on the MLS. I can send it to you. It's part of our deal flow package. So there's no questions there as to what the property condition is in. It's in pretty dang good condition. It's just that we had it under contract with maybe a buyer that didn't quite have expectations that lined up with the seller, which is fine, happens all the time. But it's still available, at least some at fourplex. That's going to be a good one to look at. Another set is the Strawberry Hill, Kansas City, Kansas. We've talked about it many times, but I think of the price point being around this $2.5 million mark is a good option to look at, because you've got opportunity to add another unit. You've got opportunity to upgrade units. There's already a path there where 10 or 11 of the 28, 29 units have already been completed. And then if you go out there, actually tour it in person, you can see it's right on top of the hill in downtown Kansas City, Kansas, overlooks Kansas City, Missouri. And it's just a growing neighborhood of what Midtown Kansas City, Missouri used to be maybe 5-10 years ago. And that stuff in Midtown is now selling $150,000, $120,000, $150,000 a unit at times.
Yeah.
So that's the path I believe that thing's going on. So it's a great one to consider. And then another property is also in Kansas, so Lawrence, 16 units. Again, there's a path for taking that to higher market rents. The rents have never been pushed on that project. Should be getting somewhere around 750, 780, maybe even 800 per unit. Everybody loves Lawrence. If you are in the area, in the metro area, people love living there. People that went to KU moved back. It's beyond a college town nowadays. So anyway, there's 16 units there, and it's for less than 1.3 million. So there's opportunity in there to grab a good set of fourplexes. So they're all fourplexes, and so you have these no owner expenses other than taxes and your general maintenance, but you're not paying for any common area maintenance. So those are 3 projects that to start off the new year will be gone probably before you know it.
Yep, absolutely. I think with the perfect storm of a vaccination coming, potentially, the transition of power in the White House, with a new year starting, people having new goals, commercial real estate is going to be a hot topic this year in 2021. They're going to talk a lot about the rebound, but if you wait until the rebound, you're going to miss the ball completely. You're going to miss the game. And so on our Kansas City Multifamily Minutes, I'm going to start leaving us with a quote. And today's quote is from the one, the only, Walt Disney. And Walt Disney had something in Kansas City called Electric Park, if you weren't aware of that. And Kansas City was where Walt called home for a few years. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So my call to action to you today is to stop talking. Logan, for real, stop talking. Start doing something. Reach out to Alex and I. Take that first step into your next commercial real estate transaction. And until next time, we hope you guys have a fantastic time. We hope to talk with you soon and have a wonderful start to your new year. We'll see you soon.
Let's get it, 2021.